He had successfully passed himself off as an Oriental for many years prior to returning to the West. In place of his usual black-lensed spectacles, his eyes were now hidden behind a pair of round India-rubber goggles I had never seen before. At the sight of him, everyone began chanting his name even louder, and more wages changed hands. But Barker ignored them and began warming up, loosening his joints and stretching. My tension eased a little. The Gov seemed confident, and why shouldn't he? He was 6 feet 2 inches tall, after all, and weighed over 15 stone, dwarfing most of us in the room. Given the short notice before the fight, what sort of fellow could they have found to face a man as formidable as he? As if in answer to my thoughts, another man stepped into the ring, and I felt my stomach fall away. If the crowd was excited before, it went into a frenzy now. The wagers redoubled now that the combatants could be compared. Ho shot me a cold glance after we had both surveyed the opponent, and his eyes were reduced to mere slits in his face. I knew what he was thinking. It was the same thing I had been thinking myself since we'd been brought here. This was all my fault, mine alone. Barker was down there about to begin the fight of his life because of my mistakes. If I hadn't followed the girl, if I hadn't fought the Chinese, if I hadn't lost the dog, then perhaps... Well, perhaps I should start at the beginning. 1. "Found summat," Inspector Neville Bainbridge said, betraying his Yorkshire roots as he fished among the pockets of his tunic. It was a Wednesday morning, the 4th of February, 1885. I didn't know the man from Adam and was assessing him primarily because it was one of my duties, but also because I was curious. I'd only met one Scotland Yard inspector before, Terence Poole, who always wore civilian dress, whereas this fellow wore a long jacket with frog fasteners and a peaked cap. I had no way of knowing whether or not his uniform was standard issue, but the truncheon inserted into the inspector's wide belt certainly was not. It was as thick as my arm, hung to his knee, and displayed scratches and dents I'd wager it didn't get from being drummed along fence posts. "Here it is." He handed over a small wafer of faded and water-stained pasteboard to my employer, Private Inquiry Agent Cyrus Barker, who regarded it solemnly. It appeared to be a simple pawn ticket. Since I'd entered Barker's employ almost a year earlier in March 1884, I had never once heard the name of Inspector Bainbridge. How long had the Gov known this fellow? "Where did you find this?" Barker demanded in his deep rumble. His black brows slipped behind the round lenses of dark glasses he always wore. He was frowning. Both men were, in fact. Whatever matter of business had brought them together was being taken very seriously. "It were in the sleeve tucked under like, and slipped into a small rip," the inspector answered. "I could see why we missed it. I was about to send the effects on to his family. I allus go over old cases after first a year, hoping to nail some down, and this cold spell has been keeping me in station more than regular." "How remarkable that it survived," Barker said. "Did you attempt to exchange it?" "Course I did," the inspector answered, stroking his long beard. "Pawnbroker wouldn't let me see it, would he? Said I wasn't the next of kin, and the law says he didn't have to let me see whatever it was until I produced one. Bloody Dutchmen. They have no business opening respectable shops in London. Not that it were exactly respectable, mind. It's in Limehouse. A more draggle-tailed aspect you'd have to work bloody hard to find." Barker stared intently at the card, as if willing it to give up its secrets. Finally, he put both hands on his desk blotter and pushed himself out of his chair. "This is a mystery," he said, "and I cannot abide mysteries. Kwong had no reason to pawn anything. I always saw that his needs were adequately met. Come, Thomas." "Yes, sir," I said, reaching to the stand by my desk where our hats and coats hung. Kwong had been my employer's first assistant. He'd been found dead a year before, floating in Limehouse Reach, shot with a single bullet between the eyes. Barker had been unsuccessful in finding his...